Oh, God, there's a mouse.
What? In your house?
A mouse. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Sorry. A mouse disappeared. God, I just was looking at
Don't
me.
you have both a cat and a dog? Why are they not?
Yeah, they're fucking useless animals. Well, I don't think it's a fucking mouse. Sorry.
Oh, my God, there's a mouse. I was like, in the book? I don't remember a mouse.
Yeah, no, God, I was just literally looking at a mouse.
Well, that's fun.
That's great.
That's fun.
Sorry, carry on.
That's right. I'll try and jump back
if I
in.
do something throughout the
Suddenly,
if I disappear,
whack. Yeah.
it's mouse related.
Hello and welcome to the Bookcast Club, a podcast for people who love to read and, more importantly, chat about books. I'm Belle. I'm coming to you today from Naarm, also known as Melbourne, Australia. And I've got Sarah with me today.
Hello, I'm Sarah. I am coming to you from Nipaluna, which is also known as Hobart, Australia.
How are you, Sarah?
Good. We're doing a back-to-back episode recording for the listener. So we're trying to have a conversation, but we've already been on Zoom.
We've already actually been talking for about 2 hours. But I thought I'll give the general public benefit of our proper introduction, because if you're not a patron, you won't have heard the most recent episode that we've just recorded.
Yeah, no, I'm well. I'm sitting here, I've got some coffee. Just had a tiny bit of lunch. It's absolutely freezing today. So I've got the heaters blasting, but it's...
How cold is it?
Working from home day today. Maybe 9 degrees or something like that.
It's pretty chilly in Melbourne as well.
It's not comfortable. Not enjoying it.
I went out this morning to have coffee with my sister, and we went to this cafe called Iris, which is in Brunswick, sort of close by to where I live in Melbourne. And it's a Danish cafe, and it's like a chef who's from Melbourne, trained as a pastry chef in Copenhagen. And then he's come back and opened this cafe called Iris, which is the name of his 2-year-old daughter. And I tell you all this just to say that I have had the best cardamom scroll, which really rivals the cardamom scrolls I had in Copenhagen.
Oh, that's nice.
That's my go-to place at the moment, and it is delicious.
I've never had one of those.
Oh,
I can't even
missing out, my friend.
I have been to. I've been to Copenhagen multiple times.
It's sort of like a ropey knot scroll. Like they're like there's lots of...
Oh, yeah.
And
I've not
often
eaten
got
them,
like a really beautiful, crispy, sweet layer on the bottom, like where all the cardamom sugar is sort of liquefied and then solidified, and it's like a crunchy caramel treat.
I'm always very taken by pastries with fruit in them of any kind. So like there's one in the Netherlands that's like a swirl with raisins in it, raisin and apple, that I'm like, I really get into.
But yes, maybe next time you come to visit me in Melbourne, I'll have to bring you to this cafe.
It's so annoying. I'm coming in like 2 weeks, but our paths will not cross, unfortunately, because our schedules do not align, which is very annoying. We both plan trips without telling each other, so now I'm going to Hobart when Belle's going to be in. I'm going to be in Melbourne when Belle's going to be in Hobart, so that's good.
Yeah,
it's perfect timing.
Yes.
So we've just got to swap.
Yeah, it was actually intentional. It was intentional. Yeah, intentional. Just missed you by a day. Yeah.
What a shame. Executed that very well, haven't we? We've done very good job there.
So Sarah's in Hobart at the moment, but she will be back in the Netherlands in a couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah. Back in the summer. I'm very excited. Just what you've left. We're such travellers. So exciting. No, I'm actually really excited about going back. I'm pumped.
Good. It'll be lovely weather to go back to. Just as it's getting super
I'll be honest,
cold
that is mostly what is driving me. I'm like, fuck yeah. I cannot wait.
So today, this episode, we're going to be talking about Claire Keegan, who is probably known to many of you. She's written 5 books over her 25-year writing career, and they're very, very accessible. A couple of them are short story collections, and the other 3 are novellas. They're very short and incredible writing. So Sarah and I had discussed, I know that you guys have done small things like these as a book to film comparison. Is that right? Who did you do that with, Sarah?
Yep. Jen. Okay. Cool. I believe. It was like I think it was November last year.
I'd read small things like these earlier that year it was one of my book club suggestions, and I absolutely loved it. I felt like it felt like the sort of great writing that you wish had been on the curriculum in school, like in literature class, because it was very, very well written, and also you could talk about so much, so many interesting themes, and just like not a word has been wasted. She just writes very succinctly, and she's a brilliant writer. So Sarah and I thought it'd be nice to dedicate an entire episode to her. Yeah. So a little bit about her, a little bit about Claire. She's an Irish writer. So she grew up in Ireland on a farm, and it was, I think that she said it was like 50 acres, and it was a farm that without running water or any books. So the family, they had 6 children, and they didn't have any money to spare on things like books. And she said that they probably could have gone to a library, but she's not sure her parents even knew that there was a library, that one existed. She loved school as a primary school kid, but she hated secondary school. And after high school, she went to live with family friends in America and attended university. And she was the first person in her family to go to university. And she completed 2 bachelor's degrees in political science and English. And it was at that stage that she started reading. She suddenly had access to a library, unlimited amount of books, and read very widely, and fell in love with both reading and writing. She came back to Ireland in the early 90s, which was a time of very high unemployment rates, and she really struggled to get a job. She taught creative writing then in Dublin for some time, and whilst simultaneously teaching herself how to write. There is a great ABC interview with her that we will link in the show notes on a podcast called Conversations. And she says that she thought that the best way to learn was by teaching, and so that's why she decided to teach creative writing. This interview, you've got to listen to it if you like her writing, because she's just sounds like the most lovely, humble, modest writer for somebody so brilliant. She really doesn't believe that she has any sort of gift. She just, she says she just writes because, she has to, but it's not, she doesn't have any gift from God from it, which is, depending on what you believe in, I think that's wrong. As in, even if it's not from God, she does definitely have a gift. She's very, very talented. One of the quotes I really liked from this interview when discussing themes behind her writing was that what feeds your imagination is what you long for, and hence what she writes about. And she sort of acknowledged that what she longs for is sort of a safe relationship, or a relationship where she feels safe, but at the same time she has quite strong opinions about marriage. She goes on a bit of a tangent talking about how marriage has always felt very unintelligent to her. And she says, you may as well stick a knife in your heart, knowing that for many people, marriage and love doesn't pan out, and that marriages don't last. Her own parents separated when she was young, and she witnessed her mother's transformation after coming out of that marriage, and sort of her liberation post the divorce, living by herself and really sort of reinventing herself and finding herself. And she sort of reflected on the fact that was sort of not what you're supposed to do. So you're not supposed to be happy and single as a female. You're supposed to be longing for a relationship. And so I guess that's a lot of the themes in her writing are about sort of women or relationships, and sort of defying the gender norms for women in relationships as well. It was just really, really interesting listening to her speak. And she described her writing process as well. And she said that she writes in paragraphs rather than sentences. She's not one of these people who writes sort of beautiful sentences. She says that sentences are social, that they don't like to be on their own. And so she crafts whole paragraphs. And I think that's why her sentences never feel very heavy, in the way that you might think they have to be, to have so much meaning and depth come from such a short text. But she's just obviously got the talent for crafting beautiful stories without sort of weighing them down, which is, really
it's an
special.
Interesting way to think, isn't it? It's quite different from how you would. I don't know. It's just it's a very specific way to think.
Yeah.
I listened to the first half of that interview. It is really good. I would recommend it. I have to say, I was quite surprised by how, first of all, it was really interesting all that sort of stuff that you've just said, and you hear that more about it in the interview, how much, if you've read a couple of her books, the themes of her stories kind of come up are obviously from things that have happened in her life. So it's not that it's not like autofiction or anything like that, but you can see the themes. There's these particular patterns and layers in her story, and I think it was really interesting to listen a bit more about her and sort of start to put some of those things together. The other thing is that I was kind of surprised by how abrupt she was. You know what I mean? She's not very fluffy.
No.
But then she's also quite like, her way of talking off the cuff is very beautiful, but it doesn't feel like she's kind of aware of it at all. She's just very like, do you know what I mean by that kind of vibe that she had? It was like very beautiful, very skilled in the way that she would talk, but in a completely unaware or like, let's say, unconscious way or something like that. Like it was her actual manner and stuff was quite direct. But then when she would get on to describing something, just what would come out was like, as if the host would say like, oh, could you tell me more about that? The way that she would describe it just immediately was like beautiful.
Yes,
it was
yes.
like, wow, it's not.
She genuinely seems completely unaware of her talent. You know, she was like, oh, you know, I don't have some God-given talent or anything. Like I just write. Like that's just what I've chosen to do. But yes, I found myself, as I was listening, writing down quotes, like writing down word for word of what she just said to sort of, because it was just so beautifully captured.
Yeah, the way she can paint a scene just like amazingly well, when she was describing her parents and stuff. It was just like...
And the fact that they raised sort of a lot of different animals on the farm, and she'd... What was it? That her parents had bought her something from pig money, which was like raising the pigs. Oh, I can't remember what it was that they'd bought her. Was it her? Maybe it was her fare to America.
Something education related, I think. It was. Yeah, I remember her saying pig money, but I don't quite remember what it was.
But yeah, it's just fascinating to hear her speak. She's a highly acclaimed writer. She was Small Things Like These was shortlisted for the Booker in 2022. I think she's won some Irish Book Awards for other books of hers. I don't have them in front of me now.
Probably. Because her books are quite short, she wouldn't be eligible for a lot of stuff, I imagine, which is annoying. So, like, So Late in the Day wouldn't be eligible for hardly anything, I don't imagine, because it's only 50 pages.
So her novellas are very, very short, and then she's got 2 short story collections. In Ireland, both Foster and Small Things Like These are on the Irish school syllabus. And so they chatted about that really briefly in the ABC interview, like what her thoughts were on that. And she responded saying that she thinks it's, you know, that she was very, very happy that they were, and that she thought it's vital for young people to read and think about how it was to be a woman in the past, especially, and sort of reflection and empathy being a necessary part of what she called being civilized, or being a sort of an active person in today's world. Yeah, it was really, really interesting to hear her speak. Did you find the awards she's won?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I get loads of them. I started reading, I gave up.
Yeah.
Rooney Prize for Irish Literature, Edge Hill Prize, Davy Burns Award, Booker, a short list for the Booker, short bit listed for the Rathbones, Kerry Group Irish Novel of the Year, Orwell Prize for Political Fiction, the Ambassador's Award, like it's massive. Yeah. She's won loads. So, yeah.
There you go. Highly acclaimed.
Very much.
So we're going to discuss... So Sarah and I have read Antarctica, which was her first short story collection, published in 1999. We've read Foster, which is a novella published in 2010. Small Things Like These, which we won't talk about too much because we've done another episode on it, but we'll touch on that. And that was published in 2021. And then her most recent book is So Late in the Day, which was published in 2023. There is one more book, which is called Walk the Fields. It's not so easy to come across, as in it wasn't in my library, and it's a little bit hard to get hands on. It's a collection of short stories, and that was her second book, published in 2007. And she said in the interview that she's currently writing a new story, which I'm guessing is going to be a novella as well, which is set on the farm that she grew up on. So that's very exciting. We can expect a new Claire Keegan at some point in the future. Do you want to start us off with Antarctica?
Yeah, sure. So Antarctica is her debut debut collection. So it's the first sort of thing that was properly published. So she always writes very short books. That's kind of her thing. Very, very short books. But Antarctica are true short stories. So that's when you're talking about, 10 pages per story, something like that. There are many, many stories within this. The sort of consistent theme throughout is that they all tend to be, often they're set in Ireland, and they are normally a really close zoom in for a very short period of time about a family or a couple or something like that who are trying to navigate some kind of difficult relationship or some kind of difficult problem. So there's always a theme of sort of conflict. A lot of them will be about gender dynamics, sort of female agencies, domesticity, expectations, that kind of thing. And it's often about people trying to, particularly women, trying to break out of some kind of barrier or sort of box created by expectation and trying to do things based on things that they want to do or feeling trapped or wanting to break out or something like this. That's the kind of the broad theme, I would say, throughout that. Having said that, they're very, very varied. So I did get the impression that this is her debut, which makes sense. I got the impression that they were from quite a long period of time, like she'd been writing them for a very long period of time, because they are, there's really all sorts of things in there. Yeah, that's the kind of consistent note throughout that. So I hadn't actually read this one before. I would just quickly look at my notes and tell you about some of them.
Yeah, I started keeping a little list and then I stopped in my phone just about generally what they were about. I've got a little list here without trying to give too much away. An extramarital affair ends in danger, and another affair where an unexpected person turns up at the arranged meeting point 10 years after the affair. There's one about an au pair who loves the child, in just this really beautiful maternal way, as you often do if you're a babysitter or a nanny and you're spending a lot of time with someone else's child. I particularly loved that one. There's, one about a lusty teenager. There's one about a man experiencing very poor mental health, thinking about ending his life. There's a one from a young girl's perspective about her mum getting admitted to a asylum, as they were back in the day. There's one about a man who goes on a fishing trip with a person who discloses that he's recently murdered his wife.
That one was intense. Yeah, then there's the one about the sisters who sort of resent each other. The oldest one has gone out to travel and the youngest one hasn't, and there's sort of all this unspoken tension between them. And they're not really navigating their problems together. They're just sort of living with each other and hating each other, basically. A really grueling one about a farm. I think this was set in like colonial America, I don't know, about a farmer who was basically imprisoning another man for assaulting his wife. And that was a very grueling story. Some of them were quite graphic, like with themes of like sexual violence and that kind of thing. And then there was another one set in Ireland where a mother had died and the whole family were kind of actively blaming the son, who was about 10 years old, I think.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That was a very tough one. And then then there was also one about an Irish couple whose child had gone missing, and they were, I think, Irish, so I got that vibe. And they were sort of trying to navigate through their relationship with this sort of huge burden, this huge, like, bit of tension. So those are the kind of stories. Some of them are quite graphic, and they're quite, confronting, some of them. But all sort of around these, like, tension, decision-making points. A lot of people are sort of facing paths, sort of forks in the road where they could go in different directions.
A lot of guilt as well, like a lot of reflection on guilt, both from somebody who feels guilty or the way that we blame other people for bad things happening.
Complex emotions.
Yeah.
I thought this was really excellent. I really loved this. Probably my favourite short story collection I've ever read, I would say. It was really, really good.
Yeah.
I don't really think any of the stories were anything less than, like, excellent. They were just really, really excellent. They were all, like, sucked in immediately by all of them. The scenes that she paints are so vivid. And I was finding that I was reading kind of one or two a day and I would just immediately be right in it. Like, she can sort of drop you into a scene so well. And I just really loved it. It was really fantastic.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I completely agree. I feel like I do love a short story collection, but there's always, at least a couple that don't grab you.
Yeah.
I've read short story collections where I've just sort of DNF'd one story and just skipped to the next one because it's not holding my attention or is just clearly not as good as the story, preceding it. Yeah, whereas that was not the case here. And they're all so different. And I found it interesting that they seem to be not just based in Ireland. Like some of them seem to be based in America. I think the one the fishing one that I was saying about the man who goes fishing with an acquaintance who then confesses that he's just murdered his wife. I think that's set in...
Yeah, and that couple who are meeting up when they're both married and they're sort of looking for something else.
Yes.
That one's set in the US, I'm pretty sure. They're in like a diner. Yeah, but most of them are quite Irish, I think. Yeah. As are most of her books.
Yeah, but no, I thought it was fantastic. The cover is beautiful as well. It's got I think it's a Siamese cat on the front. And so I loved that one.
What I don't understand is why is it called Antarctica? That's what I couldn't figure out. There were no stories in Antarctica.
No, there wasn't.
I couldn't work out what the... I just sort of like looking around on the internet, people are suggesting that it's about like isolation and like it's sort of a metaphor about being like stranded or isolated or remote, like emotionally remote. But I don't know. The big mystery. All the rest of them, I'm like, oh yeah, all the rest of her stories, that is. And also all of her short stories, all the stories that are within Antarctica have a very clear title. Like you can see exactly why it's called that. They're normally called something to do with the actual story itself. It's the general theme of them. But yeah, throughout I was like, where's the Antarctica story coming in?
There is none.
Yeah, maybe it just is that emotional metaphor. I think it's kind of an odd name, to be honest. Yeah. It's an odd name and cover combination. But anyway, I wonder if it would still be done, if it was republished now, if it would still be given that. It's a bit odd, but let's talk about the next one that does have a clear title.
Yes.
I think. Let's get away from that mystery.
Yes, The Mystery of Antarctica. Published in 2010 was Foster, which was her first novella published. And it's about a young girl who goes to live with friends of the family who she's never met before, a couple, for a summer after her mother's recently given birth to a new baby. There seems to be a lot of kids at home and not many resources. And the undertone is that the family are obviously struggling financially, and it's unclear whether any of her siblings have been sort of shipped out, but I think perhaps she's the oldest, and so she's been sent to live with this couple. It's incredibly short book. Again, I can't remember how many pages, but sort of read it in one...
It's 76.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Read it in one sitting, and I think this is my favourite of all her books.
Okay.
It becomes obvious that she has not received much love and softness in her life, and with these sort of foster parents, she feels love and safety, and even sort of represented by the fact that when she first gets there, she wets the bed, and it seems like this is an issue that happens at home, and the lady is just so lovely about it, and doesn't embarrass her about it, and eventually she just feels so safe there that that stops happening. Yeah, so basically she just experiences love and softness from these beautiful parental figures, and you get the sense that she knows sort of what it feels like to be loved and valued. She does work around the property or the house, like housework, and she feels like she's contributing to the house, and they just treat her with respect and love, and she doesn't really know if she's there to stay. She doesn't know if she's going home, if she's just there for the summer, and slowly you get the sense that she's hoping more and more that she is here to stay. And yeah, it was just a really, really, really beautiful book. It just really won my heart. I loved it. I think it was perfect.
Yeah, this one I've read twice. It's really, really good. Not my favorite of hers, but I think it's really, really excellent. This is the one that I would recommend if you're going to listen to that ABC interview that we will put in the show notes. I would read this one first, I think, because it will really, a lot of things will kind of click for you, I think. This is one that I was really thinking of when I said in that interview that you kind of can hear a lot of the themes that she talks about coming through. This is such an interesting one because it's so Irish, like in the way that they show her love. Like it's all so, there's such a theme in her books, but there's this sort of very implied communication where there's a lot of like kind of cultural norms that are affecting how they are actually talking to this child. And there's a lot of stuff happening because of like obligation or normalized behavior, I guess. Yeah, and the way that they love her, the sort of foster parents, is so kind of arm's lengthy at first. Like it's such a particular way of showing love to a child. They're sort of they show her love by showing up in a particular way and by being there for her. It's not like a massively emotional connection. I wouldn't say that kind of grows, but it's really a sort of deeds, not words, I guess, sort of approach to love. Yeah, I really, really like this. And the second time I read it, I got even more out of it because there's a lot of subtlety. There's always a lot of subtleties in her books. And there's a lot of things that's happening sort of behind the scenes and that has happened in the past with this couple. And once you've sort of read it before, I think you can sort of put it together a little bit more from the beginning. Everything that's actually in there, it's very layered. So yeah, this one's just really, really excellent. I would really, such a good one. I think it's really excellent. I love it. It's really good. The next one is Small Things Like These, which is probably at this point her most famous one. So this is the one that was shortlisted for the Booker a couple of years ago. And this is basically about a man who is living in a small Irish town, and it is largely, the narrative is largely focused around the Magdalen laundries. These are the Magdalen laundries, so these were set up for girls basically who were pregnant and were not married. And so this is the way that they would be kind of quote unquote dealt with. So they were taken to these places and basically forced to work for free and forced to have their babies, and then their babies were taken away from them. And so this is the one that was just adapted into a film with Cillian Murphy as the main character. And so he is the main character is aware of what's happening, kind of, and he's sort of being confronted a little bit with what's happening. But the nuns who run this Magdalen laundry in his town are in charge of a lot of aspects of the town. They have a lot more money than everyone else does. There's a whole sort of thing with poverty, so he's kind of like treading a little bit carefully, wanting to keep his head down, not wanting to be that involved. But then what is actually happening is becoming like more and more obvious to him. You've got a note in here in your description saying that Irish people have perfected the art of saying nothing.
Yeah, that was a quote from Claire during the ABC interview. She was talking about that. So Irish people have perfected the art of saying nothing, sometimes in the most cowardly way. So she's talking about the way that people were afraid of the priests and the church. And she just wanted to explore the question of why so many people said nothing during the Magdalene laundry sort of era. Absolutely. When everybody knew what was happening. And I think the last one shut down in the 1990s, so like it wasn't that long ago that they were existing.
Yeah, there's so much talking around it in the book and also the film. There's so much like sort of something's happening, everyone just immediately starts talking about the weather or whatever. This happens a lot. This happens all throughout her books. But yeah, I think this is the worst one because you have this big grievance that's right in front of them, this horror, and everyone just lives around it, keeps their heads down. And I think it's really sensitively told, actually, the way that she portrays the struggles that those people are having, because she does reveal sort of like what's happening in the main character, Bill Furlong, his name is, what's happening in his life, the kind of pressures that his family have in terms of money and feeding their own children and the considerations that they have, he and his wife have about the influence that the nuns have on the town and what might happen to their kids if they sort of start to get involved. So the sort of complexities of these dynamics, I think, are really well told by her. You sort of feel a bit trapped, I think. That was my feeling reading it, because someone needs to do something and it just feels so entrenched in their society, how this actually works. Yeah,
and he's getting a lot of warnings from people who have obviously found out through the grapevine that so he knows, that maybe he's thinking about doing something about this. They're sort of warning him off it and sort of saying that, they really are keeping the town running. And so if we were you, we wouldn't be doing anything, like don't cross them. They also, I think, the best school for like secondary school for girls was a Catholic school that was basically on the property of the...
I think they teach it a lot, the nuns. They're definitely in charge of the enrollments.
Exactly. And so essentially it was like hinted that like he's got 4 or 5 daughters, that they wouldn't be accepted into the school if he was to sort of cause any drama. And obviously the book comes to a sort of a peak where a decision has to be made, and it was really interesting. I was reading another interview, which was, let me see if I can find it. No, I can't. I think it was an American sort of like ABC, but whatever that is in America, interviewing Claire Keegan about the book and about, what her take on why a certain action was taken at the end of the book or not taken. And she sort of gave her answer as to what she thought the motivations were behind that. But she also said that the interviewer then said, I was hoping that it was sort of, this was going to be the motivation. And she said, just because I wrote it doesn't mean I know what it's about. She said, I mean that most sincerely. So she's sort of saying, like, whatever interpretation you have is not wrong just because it's not the interpretation I have, which I just think is a really interesting thing for an author to say when they're the one that has created the book, they've created the story, and she's just seemed so open to whatever anyone's sort of belief about the motivation of the characters were. Yeah.
That's cool. I remember a Donna Tartt interview I heard once where someone asked her, she did like a Q&A with the audience, and someone asked her if she still thinks about the characters in her first book, which came out in 1992, The Secret History. And she sounded really surprised, and she was like, yeah, of course. I mean, they still like have lives. And then there was like a bit of sort of commotion because everyone was like, oh, you're going to write another book? And she was like, no, they're like, just because they're not, I haven't written a book about them doesn't mean they don't exist, and they don't just exist within the pages of my story, which I thought was really cool. So she thinks of herself as just writing, capturing kind of a time in the lives of people that in some way or the other actually do really exist. So she, in her mind, they've like aged and they still exist, but she's just not going to write about them anymore, which I thought was a really cool way. I like that sort of removal, like that Claire Keegan has as well, from between themselves and their characters. I think is really interesting. It's quite a cool way of thinking about it. So this is a good point to mention because we were talking about small things like these, which is an episode that we covered on our Patreon, I believe. I think it was a Patreon episode. Jenny and I recorded it in November last year. So what we tend to do, we talk a little bit more about films as well in our Patreon. So for this particular episode, Jenny and I talked about, we read the book and then we talked about the film. We saw things like these and talked about some of the changes that have been made and all that kind of thing. So that is one of the sort of things that we tend to do on our Patreon. So if you are interested in checking it out, please do. There's a link in the show notes. So we have a extra bonus episode every month, and then we also have a top tier where we will send you personalized book recommendations and books in the post as well. And thank you to those of you who support us. We really appreciate it. And that very much keeps the podcast going. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, patrons. Okay, so the final book or novella that we have both read is So Late in the Day, which is her most recent novella, which focuses on an Irish man whose engagement has just broken off unexpectedly. It's a day that he would have been marrying his fiancée, and it's now just another work day for him rather than a significant day in his life. In reflecting on what's gone wrong with his engagement and the marriage, it's quite interesting. Your perspective on him changes and he becomes quite an unlikable character. So he starts off as a very sort of sympathetic character who seems just to be having a difficult time sort of at work in his office, interacting with people, sort of seems like a socially awkward person. And then it slowly becomes obvious that he has quite sort of traditional patriarchal sort of ideas of marriage and that ingrained misogyny, and it becomes obvious that this is what's impacted his relationships, and even though it doesn't seem that he's aware of it himself. So the novella is really him reflecting on the failed engagement, and it's quite sad. He sort of generally becomes more and more resentful of the women around him, both this ex-fiancée who he still works with, but also other female sort of colleagues, and doesn't accept that he's played a really significant role in their relationship falling apart, or that he was the reason for the relationship falling apart. I thought this was interesting because I'm I'm trying to think if in Antarctica there were any really unlikable main characters. And I'm always very fascinated when authors can write a very sort of viscerally unlikable character, and quite enjoy
There
it.
was that guy that was imprisoning someone. He was pretty unlikable.
Yeah, but he wasn't the main. Oh, yes, actually, that's
No.
true. The one with who
It's from his perspective,
wife.
I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is true.
And there was the guy who was the boat one that you mentioned when you were describing the guy who is in someone and his friend's boat, and then it turns out his friend has murdered someone.
No, he's the main character. He takes the murderer out on his boat, and then he's recanting.
So that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then but he's supposed to be like surprised. He's surprised that this guy, it turns out, has murdered someone. But then it's kind of the same as So Late in the Day, where as the story comes out, I'm like, well, he's obviously an arsehole.
Yeah.
The fact that you miss all these red flags is insane. And then also he's bizarrely sympathetic to the murderer.
Yes.
Where he's like, oh, that's right, women are annoying. Like, it's fucked. So it's a kind of early... I kind of thought it was maybe an earlier version of So Late in the Day or something like that.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I also interpreted that short story, though, in Antarctica as that him saying that as in, like, he had to really strategically think about what he was going to say to try and get out of the situation alive, like to not alarm the man who's just confessed the murder, as to not sort of be like, oh, he's, I've got to kill him, otherwise he's going to go to the cops. So I felt like he was play acting the sort of the sympathy for the man, because and that entire short story is like him telling the police what happened. So he's obviously then gone to the police about it, and he's sort of saying, don't look in Canada, because I suggested he go to Canada, and he said it was too cold, so he's probably gone to Mexico, if you want to try and find him.
Yeah, that's true.
That was an interesting...
I was quite tripped out by that scene, because it's weirdly parallel to one that happens in the Tell Her to Mr. Ripley, which I just read.
Oh.
I was like, it's another boat murder scene. That's bizarre.
Yeah.
How many of those are there? It's really bizarre. Anyway, sorry, what were you saying about So Late in the Day? I've forgotten how we got here.
Unlikable character, unlikable main character,
yes.
Unlikable narrator. Yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely love this, I have to say. I think this is my favourite.
Oh, interesting.
Of
okay.
hers. I really like them all, but this one I really, really loved. The amount of perspective shifting in a 50-page story I thought was really amazing. And the way that your feelings about this person, the main character, shifted, I was like, good Lord, like, this is such a tight space to have this complete narrative change, and the way that you're like slowly unpicking details for the reader. Because you really start to get into the complexities of their relationship, and it's so subtly told, because the main character, just clearly has no, Cathal, I think it's called, he just has no insight as to what's actually happening, and like you feel so much sympathy for his fiance, but it's all through his kind of like shitty thoughts, where he's like, then she did this to me, and I'm the victim. But it was so subtly done, like that the first sort of 20 pages or so is just not like that at all. So, yeah, it was really, really masterful, I thought, to be honest. Really loved it.
Yeah.
I did see it was published elsewhere under the title of Misogyny, also the way that she discusses misogyny in this book is so subtle, and she really talks about those deeply entrenched ways of thinking that people default to, which are so harmful in the longer term. And so the way that she really talks about like his expectation that his fiance would cook for him all the time, and this kind of lack of this very traditional gender roles, and all of the ways that he was treating her, which are just based on these sort of assumptions and long-standing ideas about how men and women interact in a relationship, and how this kind of like is basically what made their relationship fall apart.
Yeah, even his frustration at like when she moved in, the fact that she had possessions really impacted him. Like he was sort of like, I just thought it was you going to be moving in, not all your things. And she was sort of like, well, why wouldn't all my things come with me? It's like my books and my shoes, and like that really was upsetting him. And he so
that was the pivot. That was the turning point. I think
that was it.
Yeah. Good one. Yeah, I thought this was so good.
Yeah.
What were your general thoughts?
This was probably, out of the 3 novellas, this was probably, look, it's not saying much because all 3 of them are brilliant, but this might have been my least favourite one, just because I think it was so well written. And again, this is more of a reflection on how well written it was, that I just really, really disliked him by the end of it and was really sick of him. Like, I kind of was like, okay, I want to stop reading about him now. Like, I didn't want to give him any more attention. As soon as
I'm glad it ended when he did, which is amazing because it's 50 pages. Yeah, and at the end you're like, fuck this guy.
I don't want to listen to him anymore. You know, like, I don't want to give him. What's it called? Like, I don't want to give him any more audience, airtime. Like, which is amazing when you're talking about a fictional character that you could feel so much like disgust towards somebody and just like.
Yeah, who 30 pages before you were like, really caring about,
like, oh, he's just like a lonely man, and then so that was I think it's just a very good and timely piece of writing about misogyny. Yeah,
it's bloody good. How could you rank them, or like not rank them but order them in your like least and most favorite?
Yes,
or either order. I thought about this beforehand. I forgot to say that I was thinking about it.
Okay.
Shall I do mine?
You do yours.
You go.
No, you do yours.
I think I would put Antarctica and So Let the Day equal first.
Yep.
And then I would do Foster, and then I would do Small Things Like These. For me, a lot of the stuff that we've said about her writing and her incredible abilities is true all the way through for these. For me, I think she shines the most in that short story space. And so for me, I find once it gets closer to more like the 150 page mark, which is Small Things Like This is her longest, it starts to feel quite over, like I feel like it's done, and it starts to, so Small Things Like This, the criticism I have for it is it feels like it's pushing slightly for me past its natural limits, whereas her others, I would say that's not the case. That's how I feel about her writing. So I just feel she's really amazing in that slightly smaller space.
I wonder.
So that's the order.
I wonder if she was pushing herself to write a novella that was slightly longer, so it could not necessarily be included in prizes, but I wonder if she was trying to challenge her, her very
I was wondering how publisher made her do it.
Yeah,
because it was just eligible for the Booker.
Yeah, and then it was shortlisted like instantly. And I guess like she is so good that the other 2 surely.
Yeah, because I think the Booker, I think it's something like 40,000 words. I know it's around the 100-page mark. And so I think Foster would have just been shy of it. And so that I definitely would be shy of it. Yeah. So I did kind of wonder, but I'm very curious to hear your opinion on that and also your ranking.
I think equal first would be Foster and Antarctica. There's a few specific stories in Antarctica that I really, really loved and really made like an impact on me, and I keep sort of playing them in my head. And then probably Small Things Like These, even though I do agree with you that I think if it was a little bit more succinct, it would have been better. But I think, again, the character development is it Bill?
Yeah. In Small Things Like These.
In Small Things Like These. I think that was what you got out of the extra pages. And I really just liked the idea that he was often reflecting on his childhood, thinking about what he was going to do about these young girls who were being kept as prisoners, essentially, in the laundry, and the love that he has been able to show his daughters, in his own way, and his reflection on his childhood and the love that he received not only from his mother but from his sort of caretaker, who was a lady, I think Mrs. Wilson, who owned the big manor or big sort of mansion that his mother worked at when she became pregnant with him, and Mrs. Wilson kept the mother on and then allowed her to raise Bill in this big house and this big estate, and that he was showing love by somebody who wasn't family, and that this was something that was very impactful on his life. And sort of, I think the message that I got from that was that children, just need somebody to love them, and you take love wherever it comes from. And as long as somebody loves you, that you're sort of set up with that security and that sort of attachment. And yeah, so I think I really enjoyed that element of the story so that sort of side plot or the history of the character, as well as what was actually happening in the present time. And then So Late in the Day would be my least favorite, but obviously still, very highly rated. Yeah, that'd be my rating.
Yeah, nice. Cool. Nice one. Excellent.
Okay.
The film is just come out in Australia, by the way, of Small Things Like These. I'm going to go see it again next week.
And I believe Foster was also made into a movie in Irish language, but I've been quite keen to watch that as well. I think it's not called
The Other
Foster.
Girl or something. The Other Girl, something like that.
Let me find it out.
I haven't. I was going to watch it. I actually completely forgot that I was going to do that.
The Quiet Girl, it's called.
The Quiet Girl. That's it. Yeah, I think it's not the best name, but anyway.
No.
It's too much like every thriller.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not a thriller at all.
Yeah.
But it does look quite good.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks very much, mate.
Thank
Love
you.
it. Claire Keegan.
We love her.
We might have exhausted Claire Keegan on the pod.
Yeah,
now.
that's it. Well, we've the only one we have not read is her other short story collection, Walk the Fields. So but I think we've done well to read the rest. And I hope that this inspires people to pick up one of her books, even if it's just one of her novellas, and then you'll understand what we're raving about, how brilliant Claire Keegan's writing is.
Yeah, it's just impressive. That's the way I would. It's
impressive.
Really masterful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If there's another author that you think we might like to do this kind of episode where we read a couple of their books and discuss, we would love to hear it. So please let us know. We are at Bookcast Club on Instagram and TikTok, and you can email us at thebookcastclub@outlook.com. Don't forget about our Patreon. Check us out in the show notes if you're interested in supporting the pod. And otherwise, we will speak to you again next week. Goodbye.